This is the Hagmann and Hagmann report for today. It's a manic Monday. It's Monday, May 12th, 2014, the day after Mother's Day. I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann report. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of incredible, live, unbiased, uncensored news, information, analysis, incredible programming tonight. I feel that we've got a great show for you lined up. As the program unfolds, you're going to be hearing about a number of different issues that will be impacting you in one way, shape, or form here in the near term. You're listening to the only show, ladies and gentlemen, where the news is presented to you in 3D format, meaning that we look beyond the headlines and beyond the bylines and bring you the news behind the news through the fog of disinformation, whether it be natural or more man-made magician's fog. We look through it. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. Of course, our website is undergoing a makeover, and hopefully you'll like that. We are in the process of repairing a couple of links there, but and populating this now with information that we've collected over the last year, stuff that is going, boy, I'll tell you, it's a job, but the access to the information that you will have when this is done is going to be phenomenal. Folks, we're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There, you can tune us in at the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.com. Spell it all out, 2 N's on Hagmann, spell out the word and there you've got it. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for your belief and trust in us. Thanks for tuning us in, deliberately listening to this program. I want to say hello, very special hello to our dear friend, Greg Jackson. Greg, thanks for listening. Prolific author, great motivational speaker, great speaker. Just love the guy. I'll tell you, he's just a tremendous guy. He's the author of a couple of books, one coming out here in August as well. But anyway, just want to say hello to you, Greg. But again, thanks for joining us. And we are going to walk through this minefield of current events together tonight. Now, we've got a very special show planned for you. Before we get into everything, let me just say that portions of tonight's broadcast are sponsored by NatureBox. Folks, order great tasting, healthy snacks right to your door. Forget the vending machine. Forget the sugar-laden, GMO-laden snacks in your pantry. Get in shape for summer with healthy, delicious treats like, I don't know, pick one. Like everything bagel sticks, for example. You can support this broadcast, this show, and get half off, 50% off your first order. Just go to naturebox.com/CFP-radio. That's naturebox.com/CFP-radio. Again, thanks for joining us. Joe, welcome to the studio this evening. We've got a great show.
Yes, we do. We got some news we're going to get into. Then we're going to be joined by a guest who's been on the show before to talk about what we can do to, I'll let you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'll do here is Joe's graciously allowed me to give a little bit of a kind of a preliminary monologue here. So what I'll do is I will tell you about our second hour guest who will be with us for 15 minutes to a half hour roughly to give an update about the official inquiries, her work with the Loretta Fuddy investigation. Folks, that is, and I'm going to wait to the second hour to really get into that, but ladies and gentlemen, there is some extremely important information. You've got to understand what's going on with respect to the Hawaiian Department of Health, the woman who went down who died after a water landing in Hawaii, off of Hawaii back in December of last year. And of course, she was the person who authenticated Barack Hussein Obama's long-form birth certificate. We have some important news. Please stay with us for that. Grab a friend, grab a family member, grab whoever you can grab somebody off the street. It's important that you've got to listen to this because we also have an initiative that we are going to challenge you with. But before we get into that, before we get into the news, I just wanted to take a moment here. I received a couple of emails over the weekend, and this is pretty interesting. Many people talk about what we're faced with or what we might be faced with respect to, wow, could they kick in our door? Could they take our guns away? Will they take our guns away? Will they take our family away? Will they even have the audacity to hurt our wives, our children? Think of it this way. Here you are, not to the men of who are listening to this program. If you're a man listening to this program, you've got a responsibility to protect your family. I got a couple of emails over the weekend saying, "Oh, no, you should submit to the authority of the government because God put the government in place as a matter of judgment." Now, I'm not going to get into a full response. This is just my basic take on the matter. Okay. Somebody has 45 minutes stressing me down concerning my stance on a column I wrote about now's the time to choose your own side, to choose a side, I should say. And and of course during the weekend I got a lot of emails saying, "Hey, did you know that so and so was spent 45 minutes saying that basically I and any Christian should not pick up an AR-15 or not pick up a sword, if you will, metaphor, practically speaking, that is, realistically speaking, but submit to the authority of the government. If they come in to take your wife, let them. Put the side, and this is based on my column from, I believe it was April 30th, the side I should take is the side of not fighting back, the side of submission, the side of acquiescence, basically. And that, of course, represents my obedience to God. Here's my response very briefly, and here's my take on it. And this is pretty consistent with the true meaning of submission written by, Romans 13, written by Tim and Chuck Baldwin. But folks, and this goes especially to the men out there, here's what I have to say to that, and I'm going to be very brief. Because I have thought about this and really attempted to understand that mindset. I attempted to understand me standing in my living room or in my driveway or in my garage or on my front yard, front lawn, watching my family being rounded up, my wife or daughter being raped or worse, tortured. To even talk about this is just incredible. What is one to do? Is one to fight back? Well, of course, to me, that there's no discussion. But apparently for some there is. Because I believe and this is, again, consistent with, I believe, the teachings of Chuck and Tim Baldwin, I believe that the reference here is to Romans chapter 13. And that's been increasingly misinterpreted by many, 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 many people. This brilliant passage of Scripture providing bold instruction for the child of God regarding the proper role and duty of government, it's become sort of as the Baldwins would say, ubiquitous opiate. that causes Christians to revel in the sheepish slavery and servitude. Without a shadow of doubt, in my mind anyway, Satan has used the misinterpretation of Romans chapter 13 to cause more Christians to surrender their God-given liberties and freedoms to all sorts of tyrants, both religious and secular. To me, that's a sin. And it really wasn't an issue until maybe the late 90s, and then as we got into the post 9/11 era, that this did become an issue. Before that, according to the Baldwins, Christian leaders and laymen alike properly understood that the fundamental natural law, principles of freedom, principles of jurisdiction, and, of course, the big one, the principles of duty. As with all Scripture, including but not limited to Romans chapter 13, no Bible passage was ever intended to be taken out of context from the totality of the scriptural and biblical instruction. Using Romans chapter 13 to prove a tyrant's claim that Christians, that followers of Jesus Christ, must give absolute and total submission to a civil is absurd. It would be like using, for example, Timothy 5:23 to prove a wino's claim. Now, these are Baldwin's words, that the submission and addiction to booze is justified and even commanded by God, or to the wife beater using Ephesians 5:22 to prove that beating his wife into submission is also justified or even commanded by God. We're plainly instructed to stand fast in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free. That's in Galatians 5, chapter 5, verse 1. This freedom includes virtually every area of the Christian walk, whether it's, every area, period. And every pastor, again, now these are Pastor Chuck and Tim Baldwin's words, every pastor, every Christian, every layman, teacher, every civil magistrate, every student, every judge in this country should read this treatise of Romans chapter 13. Read it at least twice. Encourage everyone to read Romans chapter 13. The misinterpretation, and understand how it's misinterpreted. Would any Christian advocating total submission to government, no matter what, also advocate, we'll say, a wife's submission to her husband, no matter what? Of course not. We complain about that, don't we? With the Islamic cult. What about if your employer requested you to do something, to submit to something regardless, no matter what? Or your pastor did the same thing. The scriptural principle that governs a citizen's submission to his civil authorities is the same principle that governs his or her submission to any other authority. Why is it only to civil authorities that Christians must give absolute and total submission? Those are the words of Timothy and Chuck Baldwin in Romans 13. More importantly, cutting to the chase, and then we'll get into the news. But again, I just wanted to address this. I think one would be very hard pressed to justify, in the name of Christian duty, submission to a government which causes harm to innocent people. One shirks the duty to his fellow man by unconditionally submitting to, abetting an antithetical God-ordained government whose power is wielded to a point that we're unable to live peaceably and quietly with others and with ourselves. I mean, a man must take care of his family. To the men out there, you've got to take care of your family. That's not me. That's not I'm not saying that. That's God commanding that. And he who ignores this duty, according to the Bible and in the words of Scripture, or citing Scripture, is worse than an infidel. Shirking this duty will affect not only God's blessing of a man on earth, temporarily, but his eternal salvation, his eternal life, his eternal soul. Truly, I believe that a man must be well armed to protect his family, to protect against any person who would injure his family, to usurp his authority, to trod over the rights of others and the members of your family. Don't forget, did not Jesus tell his followers, let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one? Didn't he say that? Of course. It's in Scripture. Take that out of context. Did Jesus perhaps not understand the purpose of the use of the word or the use of a sword? Of course, he was referring to a military weapon used in battle. He most certainly did. Now, he taught in parables by using these same natural law principles of self-defense in Luke 12:39. What did Jesus say? Jesus says, if the good man of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not have suffered his house to be broken through. Would Jesus use a parable that contains false principles contrary to God's will? Or would he use a parable that conforms to God's law so that he may accurately and completely explain them as applied to different areas of his life? The answer is obviously that Jesus' parables contains the truth of God's laws. All of them do. Folks, naturally, the ability to protect yourself, your family, your wife, your daughter, your son, your neighbor from an aggressor is just not limited to robbers or to rapists or to murderers or to people gone nuts and who seek to harm you or someone else. Such a God-given right and duty of defense extends especially to the tyrant who uses their trusted position and the power under the color of authority to betray the trust of the public and destroy those whom he is charged to protect. Bear in mind that the tyrant's harm is one heck of a lot greater and much more reprehensible than that of some sole individual robber, rapist, thief. Condone sacrifice of one's family for the sake of an enemy. And anyone who thinks that he does, to me, in my opinion, is a lunatic. And then a dangerous one at that. God never would condone the sacrifice of one's family for the sake of an enemy. It's been on my mind based on the emails I've got. Feel free to disagree. But I think that one of God's most fundamental commandments, God requires that man not kill without cause, of course, and not steal or even covet each other's property. I can tell that Joe's having a fit. Apparently he doesn't agree with me, or he has an issue with me bringing this up. I sprung this on him. But the fact is, to fight against injustice as I see it, is not only our right, but our duty. And it's a duty not to be neglected without sin. The duty of their whole life. This very essence of justice consists of man performing his covenant with other people. Can a man covenant to submit to government at the hurt and detriment of his neighbor or brother or even himself or his family? To say yes, in my view, is absolutely, totally ludicrous. Yet anybody who would submit unconditionally to a government, to a tyrannical authority, makes such a covenant, violates the very essence of the law of God. That's my view. Feel free to disagree with me. I feel very strongly about this because I do believe there will come a time that we will have to choose a side. And by choosing a side, I'm not saying take up arms against your government. What I'm saying is, very simply, you as a man in the family, you've got a right. Not only a right, but you've damn well, I better understand you've got a responsibility, a God-given responsibility to protect your family. And failing that is sinful. And it's unfortunate that we're seeing this acquiescence, this total submission. I was told to take up the cross, or I was told that I should take up a cross instead of an AR-15. I didn't realize that was mutually exclusive. I didn't realize you can't do both. Folks, pray about it. You can think about it. You can disagree with me. You can agree with me. I don't care. I'm just telling you my position. You can send me all the emails you want, but let me be on record today, May 12th, 2014. Let me be on record today, May 12th, 2014. Let me be on record that I'm not as an infidel. I do accept my responsibility as a husband, as a father, as a leader of my family, to exercise my God-given right and responsibility to protect my loved ones, to protect others, to protect the innocent. And in my view, failure to do so is not only ludicrous, not only insane, but to play right into the hands of Satan himself. That's just my view. That's my monologue. I've got nothing more to say.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that at this time. Let's just get into some news. We have a lot of news to get into before we have Butter Dezillion to come on. A couple of interesting articles here. One of them that really caught my attention and circulating today. The Department of Homeland Security secretly allowing suspects with terror ties into the country by taking them off the watch list or putting the terrorists on hands-off lists that permit individuals with terror ties unfettered entrance into the United States. This according to a document released by Senator Chuck Grassley. The existence of a hands-off list that permits easy entrance for suspect individuals into the United States has drawn concern from Senator Grassley, who released a cache of internal DHS emails detailing the list's existence and discussion about permitting an alleged member of the Muslim Brotherhood into the United States. The emails sent between U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and U.S. Customs and Border Protection reveal a row over the admittance of one of the alleged Muslim Brotherhood officials tied to Hamas, Hezbollah, and other terror groups. It goes on to say, additionally, the emails reveal a larger campaign by DHS and its former head, Janet Napolitano, to purge internal records of hundreds of terror suspects who had, including Badawi, who had his records purged in December of 2010. Sources who spoke to the Free Beacon had reviewed unredacted versions of the emails indicating that many files pertaining to foreign terror suspects may have been purged by the Department of Homeland Security. Said congressional investigators are currently looking into the matter. The emails between ICE and CBP were released by Grassley show confusion as to why Badawi was being permitted entrance into the United States. I'm puzzled how someone could be a member of the Muslim Brotherhood and an unindicted co-conspirator of the Holy Land Foundation trial, be an associate of redacted, say that the U.S. is staging car bombs in Iraq and that it is okay for men to beat their wives, question who is behind 9/11 attacks, and afforded the luxury of a visitor visa in de-watch listed, one official wrote May 2012 in the emails released to Grassley. And you tie this in with the huge attention being paid to what is the terror group that was for 2 years was allowed to operate without the label of being a terror group. Are you familiar with the
Muslim Brotherhood? I mean,
there's a
pick one.
No, there
are plentiful.
A specific one here. I'll find it here. And there's stories about why they were not put on the terror watch list.
Oh, well, okay. We had. Let me just go back a little bit. This is kind of taking a left turn off of your story. The terrorist organization called Jamaat al-Fukra. You hear about Martin Mayer.
Boko Haram.
Okay, well, Jamaat al-Fukra was once on the watch list of terrorist organizations here in the United States. I'll tell you right now, they got camps. They have training camps all over the United States. I had said in the program a while back I was going to turn all of my investigative information I had on Jamaat al-Fukra. I was going to just turn it loose, publish it, and I'm going to do just that, folks, because with this new website, I don't care anymore. I mean, when I say I don't care anymore, I'm not holding back at this point. This whole thing is ridiculous. The classifying terrorist groups, as you say, and I don't want to get into a rant, but I just had it today. But go ahead with your news story.
Well, these emails that were released to Grassley reveal that the U.S. has a terror hands-off list, and that terrorists or people associated with terrorism were put on a D-watch list, and how Janet Napolitano had a huge tie-in to this happening, and whether this came from higher up, which I probably believe it did. It says in this article from Judicial Watch, this is pure insanity, and the senator has tried for months to get answers from the Department of Homeland Security. In February, he wrote a letter to Mr. Johnson saying, I'm puzzled how someone could be a member of the Muslim Brotherhood and a co-conspirator of the Holy Land Foundation trial and be put on a D-watch list. And the agency response, dated April 10th, apparently frustrated the senator enough to make the whole thing public last week. And it goes on to say that the agency does not have the authority to ignore information that it renders about an illegal individual inadmissible because it does not have the discretionary authority to admit an alien or an inadmissible alien. But they would render an individual free of the grounds of inadmissibility of one form of inspection requirements, secondary inspections. They go on to talk about the Department of Justice, the terror watch list being maintained by the Terrorist Screening Center, which was created under the authority of the Attorney General and the FBI. All questions related to this watch list should therefore be referred to the Department of Justice for response. This from the CBP commissioner. So what they were doing here is, and it's come out now, I've seen articles saying, the United States is on the wrong side of history now by supporting Al-Qaeda and the Nazis. That was a headline I read last week. When it hasn't switched sides, it's always been on the wrong side, especially if, the Nazis were one of the ones that it was giving favor to. It didn't just happen.
We've been on both sides.
Well, and that's being on the wrong side. In other news, this from the former CIA director, this was making its rounds. Former CIA director, we kill people based on metadata. I don't know if you saw this story.
Absolutely. This is now, folks, pay attention to this because just pay attention to this. Go ahead and go through the story, and we'll pick out highlights through that.
There was
people need to know.
A debate concerning the NSA's surveillance programs. Former CIA and NSA director Michael Hayden admitted that metadata is used as the basis for killing people. And comments were made during a debate at the Johns Hopkins University after Georgetown University Law Center professor David Cole detailed the kind of information the government can obtain simply by collecting metadata. who you call, when you call them, how long the call lasts, how often the calls between the two parties are made. NSA supporters often claim such metadata collection is permissible considering the content of the call is not collected. Cole argued that is not the case, since the former general counsel of the NSA, a Mr. Stuart Baker, has already stated metadata alone is more than enough to reveal vast amounts of individual personal information. And it goes on to say how this information is used to decide basically who is an enemy and how they select their targets with drone strikes around the world.
Okay, folks, what's important here, and I think what people really need to really understand is the vast collection that's going on. Everything that you do, you go to the grocery store, you use your credit card or debit card. As soon as you do that, okay, there are databases that collect. For example, it's registered at your bank and or your credit card company, depending on how you make your purchase. If you use, for example, a customer loyalty card to that store, that is sent to a database, to the corporate headquarters of, we'll say, Costco or whatever store. What happens is there's an interface between that store and the government, the United States government, for example, the NSA, and other agencies well beyond the NSA. So, for example, if you go to a store and use your customer loyalty card and you buy, you suddenly, for example, buy 200 pounds of flour and 300 pounds of beans and make purchases that are inordinate to what you've been doing, you will be flagged for that. That puts you in a different classification. Now, keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this. Okay, that's is that, for example, them keeping track of your buying habits? Is that against any type of law? Well, it's certainly anti-privacy, but the fact of the matter is they're collecting this information. Now, with metadata, it's very simply, we'll say a telephone call. All the metadata is your phone number, the number you call from, the number you call, the duration of the call, and the geographical location of the telephones, yours and the recipient's. That's the metadata part of it. Now, there may be other aspects in there, but that's the gist of it. So you might think, okay, what's the harm in that? Because we certainly wouldn't want, neighbor John Smith calling Anwar al-Siddiqui in Yemen and talking, talking for 30 minutes, or you know what I'm saying? You certainly, especially if the recipient of the phone call, or if the other person on the other end of the phone call is a known terrorist, we certainly can't have that, can we? Well, so there's a collection of metadata to identify, ostensibly to identify any potential threat. Now, keep that in the back of your mind. We can go on and list other examples, but the fact of the matter is this metadata creates this profile. The government looks at this and says, wait a minute, maybe you used your debit card to buy online to buy a whole bunch of precious metals, silver and gold, and then this week you use your card to buy ammunition from Cheaper Than Dirt or some other. I just use that as a company, because that's the one I came to my mind. Or Ammo Is Us or Ammo Are Us or whatever. And then you've got this phone call. Well, the phone call maybe to I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But the fact of the matter is, all of this is being collected, and you are being profiled by metadata. This is all metadata. So metadata is not as innocuous and as harmless as you think it is. It is creating a profile. So they can label you a potential survivalist, a potential terrorist, if the survivalist falls in a subsection of being a terrorist. That's what's taking place today. That alone will reclassify or classify you in your threat level. Now, keep in mind, is we're looking toward every county in America having an armed drone here in the next, I believe it is, the goal is the next 3 to 5 years. Keep that in the back of your mind. To date, to our knowledge, or at least nothing publicly stated, there has been no armed drone use on U.S. soil. Notice how I said that. So please don't quote me incorrectly and send me an email. There has been no reported use of any armed drones on U.S. soil, at least reported or acknowledged by the U.S. government. But the fact of the matter is, what do you think they're collecting all this metadata for? And do you think they're limiting it to metadata? No, of course. What didn't Edward Snowden disclose? The Office of National Director Intelligence has released, because of a FOIA request, its latest controlled access program classification marking guide. This is something to be considered. The fact of the matter is, we are looking at this invasion, complete invasion, this colonoscopy of our lives by every and all means out there, by the DHS, by the NSA, by the U.S. intelligence community as a whole. You know what Snowden has released based on public and open source information. But what he hasn't released, I believe, is perhaps his insurance policy, and goes well beyond anything that we've heard to this point. So this metadata collection, going back to that, is extremely important, because it's not as innocuous as maybe Matt Lauer and others would have you believe. It's not, oh, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, then certainly you've got nothing to worry about, because they could take the information and put it in such a context where, you're a terrorist.
There is interesting news from something the Pope said, this from the Washington Times. Pope Francis says even Martians have a right to be baptized. Pope Francis said Monday that everyone has the right to be baptized, even aliens from outer space. The Pope said during his daily Mass that the Catholic Church should not close its doors to the people who wish to be baptized, even if they are green men with long nose and big ears, like children draw, says the French news agency AFP reported. If tomorrow, for example, an expedition of Martians arrives and some of them come to us, and if one of them says, we want to be baptized, what would happen? He joked. The Argentina pontiff is known for his colorful sense of humor and his down-to-earth style in representing the church. But, with so many leaders and people talking about the quote-unquote aliens, for the Pope to jokingly or unjokingly or seriously talk about this and talking about baptizing an extraterrestrial is kind of out there. It's very troublesome just to see. I mean, even if it's a joke, that's something that is out there, too out there for me to even comprehend. I mean, the things that have come out of this man's mouth it's getting a bit crazy.
Well, it should tell us something, shouldn't it? If the Pope is talking about potentially baptizing aliens, Martians, people from other, or entities from other planets, what are we being prepared for? Seriously.
We know that any type of aliens are not extraterrestrial beings that are separate from God's creation. We know that it states plainly in the Bible that God created these, all men and creatures on the earth. But to see, with such talk about the aliens, we know to associate them as demons. As we're told, a great deception will come, that even the very elect, if possible, would be deceived. But I think to welcome these things.
Yeah, it's more about conditioning, though, don't you think?
Absolutely, it is, but it takes it a step further. And so imagine a legion of demons, or quote-unquote aliens, comes in tomorrow posing as saviors. Is he saying the Catholic Church will embrace them with open arms?
Well, he's saying baptize them, right? I mean, how much more open arms can you get? So
right.
We are being set up. This is why, too. I believe this is why we do the Sunday evening programs. We do it for spiritual discernment. We do it for information as well. But the fact of the matter is, I truly believe that we are going to see things take place that will involve these alien type life forms. Why do you think we talk about the DNA so much? Why do you think we talk about the Cain lineage so much? Because we're talking about being set up. We're talking about the biggest lie of all, and that's the lie that some race is going to come forth and say, you know what, we're your cousins, and oh, you know that thing about, that Jesus thing? Well, he was one of us, and we're, as a matter of fact, you're really we were here first. You're really, meaning the human race, the seed of Adam they're the aliens, the seed of Adam's the aliens. It's a whole convoluted type of lie that I believe will get a lot of people, including thinking Christians. Sorry about that. The same type of Christians who will embrace the complete acquiescence and submission to a tyrannical authority, and say, yeah, have your way. Okay, I believe that same spiritual, demonic, satanic influence will also play a big part in the deception. I truly believe that. It's all one and the same. It's all fruits. It's all branches of the same tree of deception. That's my view, and I think we are being prepared to say, you know what, we'll accept this. Yeah, there are saviors, and you look up, and it's kind of, what is that? The blue beam rapture that's discussed, perhaps. What better way to depopulate a country or a world? But the fact of the matter is, to even talk about this, at this particular point, tells me that we're getting close to some sort of event that would potentially give us be a deception of huge proportions, and it's going to catch a lot of people unaware. It's going to catch a lot of people who are not paying attention, unaware, and it's going to cost them their bodies and souls, I believe. So that's the significance of talking about this. That's the significance about the statement. That's my thought anyway.
Also, I don't know if you saw this FACTA IRS story and what's happening with the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act.
Yes.
Starting
Isn't that interesting?
July 1st, 2014, the IRS's Foreign Accounts Tax Compliance Act will be going into effect. Basically, it's been said the IRS is going global.
Think Germany. Look, if you want to get out of the country, maybe you can, but your money ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, and I'm still gathering research as to exactly what this does, what these new requirements from the IRS will do, how they will be enforced, and who they will be enforced on. But none of this looks good. An article from Reuters from a few days ago, U.S. and Singapore reach agreement on tax evasion, the U.S. Treasury. Singapore has reached a tax information sharing agreement with the United States under a new law meant to combat offshore tax dodging by Americans, a U.S. Treasury Department spokesman said on Monday. The deal, which was expected for more than a year, will make it much easier for institutions of one of Asia's biggest wealth management centers to comply with U.S. rules and puts it ahead of rival Hong Kong, which is yet to finalize the deal. Set to take effect on the 1st of July, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act of 2010 will require foreign banks, investment funds, and insurers to hand over information to the U.S. Internal Revenue Service about accounts with more than $50,000 in them held by Americans. Foreign firms that do not comply face a 30% withholding tax on their U.S. investment income and could effectively be frozen out of U.S. capital markets.
This is the preparation for the control of everything that you do. For example, you think that the paper money that you have in your pocket right now, you think that you can, I don't know. Well, right now, at least you can go buy a car with it. You can go buy a couch with it or a refrigerator. You can go buy beer and Skittles with it, whatever you want to do with that paper folding money in your pocket. But what you're seeing happen is the lineup, the run-up, the preparation for a control system where because of the necessary guidelines that they're imposing, you're not going to be able to use cash money especially after it collapses.
They're requiring all countries and all the corporations and businesses and banks within those countries to give information to the IRS and the U.S. tax authorities, and if they do not do so, they will be punished financially. And maybe kind of like how the Obamacare says that they'll take the money right out of your bank account for not complying with the health care law as a tax. This looks to be the same kind of setup here. But for the IRS and for the United States to pass a law, and as you said, not even hiding money.
Well, it's the movement of money. It's the tracking
right.
of money, and that's what this is all about, folks. The gates are closing. The reach is extending. The IRS is an arm. Think of it this way, and this is why we put this together this way. I'm talking about this is the IRS is actually using other governments. It's like using employers to collect taxes.
Yeah, they say any entity that does not coordinate and make good faith efforts to comply with the new requirements will not be given any relief from IRS enforcement.
Correct. So the ultimate goal here is to consolidate, to centralize, and to control, monitor, and then control the incoming, outgoing flow of cash. And ultimately, what's the ultimate goal here? The ultimate goal is a digital currency where everything that you do, no matter what it is, no matter where you are in the world, will be tracked by the IRS and or the centralized one world economic system. That's the entire goal of this. That's the goal. And how else can you do it? You've got to do it incrementally. This is one of the increments.
And the U.S. Treasury Department's getting in on this, and they are preparing similar procedures outlined by the models in the FACTA Act and through intergovernmental agreements as to make corresponding deadlines coincide and to make certain other amendments. And there are still countries that are not cooperating with these obligations, and I would say with good reason, but the IRS gone global. It's just so crazy to think. The audacity of these people. They are not going to stop until, like as you said, they have control. They have the ability to know all money, where it's going, where it's coming from, who has it. And I want to thank, who is this here? I want to thank, let's see, Thomas. He sent me a PDF here on why FACTA is bad for America. And I'll go through this here. It's an 8-page PDF with information as to exactly what it does. And it goes on in the introduction here to say it's introduced to target those who evade paying U.S. taxes by hiding assets in undisclosed foreign bank accounts. With such a noble goal and the strong backing of the administration, Congress quickly drafted this legislation and quietly slipped it into the Hiring Incentives to Restore Employment bill, signed into law by the president in March 2010.
Right. This is not something brand new, for crying out loud. This is old. However, the fangs, the effects, the bottom line. I mean, people are feeling it right now, just like Drudge when he was talking about having to pay penalties for the Affordable Care Act in March. People were laughing, saying, "Oh, come on, it doesn't go into effect until 2015." Baloney. Well, I mean, technically it does, but you're still in 2014. You're paying for the estimated taxes of the first quarter of 2015, or the first quarter of 2014. You're paying for the estimated taxes of 2015. I'm doing it. Well, yeah. I mean, I've got to do it. I've got to pay the estimated taxes, being self-employed. So this is the same type of deal.
Right, and it goes on to say, FACTA requires foreign financial institutions of broad scope, banks, stockbrokers, hedge funds, pension funds, insurance companies, trusts, to report directly to the IRS all client accounts held and owned by U.S. citizens and U.S. persons, green card holders, starting July 1st, 2014. It will require these foreign financial institutions to provide annual reports to the Internal Revenue Service on the name and address of each U.S. client, as well as the largest account balance in the year and total debts and credits of any account holder owned by a U.S. person. And it goes on to say those affected by this act will be financial markets and institutions in the U.S., U.S. businesses operating in global markets, American citizens residing overseas, American citizens with legitimate investments overseas. And it talks about the ramifications of this act, and they say this act constitutes a breathtaking extension of the U.S. legislative overreach, purporting it to impose upon every foreign financial institution cooperation and partnership and the obligation to examine whether and to what extent it must adhere to the application of U.S. law. In many cases, entities electing to comply will find themselves in violation of local privacy laws.
Well, what we're seeing here is the run-up to, once again, this is the incremental, step-by-step run-up to this single global currency, this control, the monitoring of everything you do, and the control. And by the way, if you don't have the mark, you're not going to be able to buy and sell. Oh, yes, the IRS in this case, they're going to be the enforcement agency, the monitoring agency, the collection agency, and they're also going to use other foreign governments and other governmental organizations outside of the United States to do the collection just as they do here in the United States. You're not going to run from what's coming. That's the ultimate message here.
And what I'm not seeing is this being implemented on any corporations that have money or insurance. This is to individuals, right? Correct.
However, the corporations are under a different classification, and that's something totally different. That exists, but not in the same as individuals. So, just because you're a corporation, don't think that you can bypass. I mean, you could be a subchapter S corporation. Don't think, or an LLC even, don't think you can bypass the reporting requirements, because you can't. It's just done by through a different legislative action.
And the last story before the top of the hour break here, this from the Wall Street Journal, warning new Internet taxes may be coming. On November 1st, 3 days before Election Day, the Internet Tax Freedom Act is due to expire, in place since 1998 and renewed 3 times. It wisely prohibits taxes that discriminate against the Internet, state, and local governments can't impose burdens online that do not exist offline. Multiple jurisdictions can't tax the same online transaction, a critical consumer protection in a country with more than 9,600 taxing authorities. The law also bans email taxes and new taxes on Internet access services. But in a few months, customers may begin to receive notices, and the law has allowed the Internet to grow into an engine of interstate and international commerce. But customers may begin to receive notices in a few months from their Internet providers that new taxes are on the way, even though nearly everyone in Congress opposes slapping all of American heavy traditional telephone taxes on Internet access. Renewal of this successful policy being held hostage by lobbyists for giant retailers, they go on to say. And this is persuaded by Democrats, and even self-styled limited government advocate Representative Jason Chavez of Utah said that the extension of the Internet Tax Freedom Act should be paired with some authority for those 9,600 governments over e-commerce.
Yeah, you got to understand that this is a I mean, this transcends political party. You've got Republicans and Democrats both jumping on the bandwagon. This is all about money. Think of it this way: those people old enough to remember when you got your telephone bill. Remember that you got 17 pages of your telephone bill. Remember those days? In the line charges, the taxes, line taxes, this, that, the various taxes that were included in that. Think of that as the template, I suppose, for what you're about to see. That's the easiest way. After looking through this and studying this, that's the easiest way I know how to describe it. But again, you're looking. What's the ultimate objective here? Its ultimate objective is to control and to consolidate, and also in this case to collect. So,
it's a pretty messed up system, and we'll see how this pans out. But we're going to go to the top of the...
Wait a second. Hang on a second. Before we get into that, let me just sneak this story in real quick here, just in case you guys had forgotten about this. Remember Lois Lerner? Of course, she was held in contempt of Congress. House Speaker John Boehner announced his intention to effectively neuter any chance to enforce a real penalty against her. So Lois Lerner, I just want to throw this out there in case you haven't heard about it real quick. Lois Lerner, she walks without even a slap on the wrist. She was found in contempt of Congress, and yet, hey, it's okay, because Bonnier turned the case over to Holder, and I said, hey, Holder, go do what you got to do. Well, the contempt charge has gone to the Attorney General, and it's up to the Attorney General, Holder, to prosecute this and to assign someone to prosecute the case. You think that's going to happen? Yeah, unless you're one of the non-royalty, expect to be charged. If you're part of the royalty, like Lois Lerner, well, you just got out of jail free.
With that, we'll go to the top of the hour break. We'll be right back with our guest, Butter D. Zillion, on the other side. And
this is a very special edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Our very special guest is an Internet researcher, a wife, mother, just a tremendous person. Goes by the Internet moniker of Butter D. Zillion. Now, folks, if you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, our home base, on the right-hand side, we did a little bit of revamping here, a little bit of changing things around, but on the right-hand side, under tonight on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, you'll find a link directly to her website. It'll say guest hour 2 Internet researcher Butter D. Zillion. And you might think, wow, who's that? Well, let me tell you. As a detective, I've been a detective for 28 years in the private sector. I've known researchers, investigators, people who have done a lot of work in many areas, but rarely have I ever seen a person without formal training do what Butter D. Zillion has done, and that is to investigate the heck out of an incident, specifically that of the mysterious downing of the plane carrying Loretta Fuddy. Well, why is this important? Loretta Fuddy authenticated the long-form birth certificate of Barack Hussein Obama. Why is that important? Because Barack Hussein Obama may not be eligible to hold the office of the President of the United States. Why is that important? Well, this brings questions about his allegiance. Who is he allied? Where does his allegiance lie if he's not an American citizen, or if he doesn't conform to the ability to be constitutionally eligible to be President of the United States? Well, isn't it interesting that days after we had Doug Vogt on, Doug Vogt had filed an affidavit in the Northwest with the court naming Loretta Fuddy as a person who was involved in the fraud or the perpetration of a fraudulent document, that being the certificate of live birth. And she was placed into, Loretta Fuddy was placed in the position of the directorship of the Department of Health in Hawaii. That's kind of the backstory. Butter D. Zillion was onto the eligibility issue, onto Obama, Barry Soetoro, whatever you want to call him, right from day one. Did a lot of research. You can go to her blog. It's linked right off of our website. Her blog, of course, is butterdzillion.wordpress.com. It's full of information. The archives are just rich of data. And on the front page, of course, there are photographs. Now, and also a narrative. Under the photograph is an important narrative, folks, you've got to read. Because on December 11th, 2013, the Cessna carrying the Hawaiian Health Director, Loretta Fuddy, made a water landing. And, of course, we are told that Ms. Fuddy is no longer with us. She was a passenger of a plane, the sole fatality, and it just happened to be Loretta Fuddy. So with that, and with much, I'm just so grateful because Butter D. Zillion agreed to come on at a moment's notice, and she's a very busy lady. But with that, I want to bring her on. Welcome, ma'am, to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for welcoming me on.
Well, just to give people an understanding of what's going on here, you have been just really asking for documents, official documents from from various governmental agencies, including but not limited to the Hawaii Department of Health. I've got a PDF here. Let's see here. To the State of Hawaii Department of Health, Office of Health Status Monitoring, and so on and so forth. I mean, you've made requests for government documents, government records.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are we at with the investigation here? Just lay it out for us, if you can.
Well, sure. Like you said, I have requested a lot of documents. I've requested documents from the Coast Guard. I've requested documents from the Maui County Fire Department. I've requested documents from the U.S. Navy. I've requested documents from the Maui County Police Department. I requested documents from the Federal Aviation Administration. I've documents from the Department of Health, just all kinds of documents. And I've gotten some of those. It's been like pulling teeth trying to get any response. I've had a lot of crazy shenanigans in trying to get these documents. But I have gotten some of the documents. I've gotten the fire department's CAD report or CAD transcript and their incident report. I've gotten information from the Navy. I've gotten the U.S. Coast Guard case report. With that, and with those reports that I've got, there are major discrepancies between those reports, and between what's in those reports and what was told to the media. And so, on just about every major point on the story. There is some kind of discrepancy in the records, so that we don't know how the crash was discovered. The accounts of that don't make sense. We don't know who found Loretta Fuddy. We don't know who picked Loretta Fuddy out of the water. We don't know what condition she was in when she was found. We don't know who transported her, when or where. Every major, we don't know how many people. We don't know how many people the official. Well, we kind of know how many people the official reports say were rescued from the water, and it's not the number that they want us to believe. Because in their reports they account for at least 11 that they pulled out of the water, and there were only supposed to have been 9 there.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and there are references to more that were not pulled out of the water. I mean, there were references to additional people who swam ashore, and they're just, the numbers have never added up. The stories have never added up, and every detail of it. They're just contradictions galore.
Exactly, folks. And let me explain. We have of course, folks, the regular listeners from him coming on, inside information from an intelligence point of view. He understands completely what's going on here with respect to the government, with respect to the government's hiding information. But some information, it's kind of like the government, they're trying to put their fingers in the holes of numerous holes in this dike. And Butter Zillion is coming along and saying, hey, give me that document, let me have that document, let me have this one. And they're unable to plug all of the holes. So single-handedly, this brilliant internet researcher, Butter Zillion, is got the government on the ropes in terms of exposing the contradictions. And isn't it funny, folks, that well, not funny, but isn't it ironic that and sad too that everything surrounding Barack Hussein Obama, Barry Soetoro, whatever his name really is, and his mother, and those around him, screams a CIA, screams contradiction, screams the fact that we are a captive operation. So what we are attempting to do with Butter Zillion spearheading this investigation is to collect as much and as many documents as possible in order to present and to, especially to preserve the evidence as it is right now, because this does appear to be a criminal case that we're looking at here with Loretta Fuddy and the plane crash. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I would. There was definitely stuff that was going on there that was beyond what any of the reports want us to believe that what was going on there. And I had reported earlier regarding the video, Ferdinand Puentes' video, and the extra people that you can see in the water there. And it's evident that the people who were there were watching what was going on and know that the story that we've been given is not accurate, and they have covered that up. The reports that I've gotten thus far have been, there are problems with it, even when you don't look real closely at it. There are problems. For instance, the fire department's report came to me cut and pasted together, which is not a very smart thing to do when you're talking about a CAD transcript where every line has a timestamp on it, and the timestamps were out of order, so you could see that they took one section and put it in a different place to try to hide what was the beginning of the report and what was the end of the report, and probably to hide that at the end of the report there was the claim that the Coast Guard had one person in critical condition on in their helicopter. And so, that record that they were given, it was very blatantly cut and pasted together. When I asked them about it, they said, we didn't cut and paste it. I said, wait a minute, the timestamps are right there. You can see it's cut and pasted together. And they still denied that they had done anything to that CAD transcript. one of the reports by the fire chief actually had referred to another report, and I had asked to see that other report, and I was told, oh, that report doesn't exist. Well, why did they refer to it if it doesn't exist? Oh, it doesn't exist. And that's just one of the ways that they have done things, and the reports are geared towards covering things up. So there are a lot of people who know things that happen that they are not willing to tell, and they're willing to manipulate the records in order to try to hide that. One of the things in the Coast Guard report is that the Coast Guard refers to other aircraft that were there that didn't make it into the other stories. And one of the things that they did is that they referred to the Seahawk that was there, the Navy Seahawk that was there, as Easy Rider 33. And all over the place they refer to it as that. But the Coast Guard also refers to Bullet 45, which is the call sign for an F-18. So they've got information in there that would seem to indicate that there was an F-18 there, and that sure doesn't fit any of the stories we've been told. So those are the kinds of things that come up, and they raise questions, and the people who are putting these reports out there, it just seems that they're definitely hiding things.
I have to say this. Since Butter Dezillian was on last, she has been pursuing the truth through this official government paperwork. She's been applying for the documents, requesting documents from various government agencies, and getting some, being denied others. But, folks, here's what I really want everyone to understand. The reason this particular case is so important is because it represents, in my view, and this is concurred with our intelligence insider, the fact that this represents perhaps, think of a baby, the soft spot on the baby's head. I mean, this is the Achilles heel at the moment of this Obama regime and those people surrounding Obama. The fact that there was a criminal conspiracy at the heart of the eligibility and extended through into the release of the long-form birth certificate. So all of the information being obtained and amassed by Internet researcher Butter Dezillian is creating an evidentiary case to show the criminality, to be able to present the criminality that is taking place or did take place regarding and related to the Fuddy death, as well as the installation of Fuddy as the Director of Health, as well as the replacement thereof. So all of this is absolutely key to providing the information about the larger picture. This is so critical that we get this information. When I say we, I suppose I should say Butter Dezillian gets it, but we're working together. Believe me, I feel bad even saying that. She's doing the heavy lifting here. Let me just say that up front by spending her time and requesting these documents. But the fact is, we have reached the point where now, and I'll let you take it from here, we've reached the point now where you're asking, we together, as a matter of public interest, are asking for something and have been stonewalled, if you want to get into that, because this is kind of the heart and soul of tonight's conversation. Yeah.
We've got the evidence that we've got so far, and I don't want to go into it very much detail because I don't want to clue anybody in to records that they might want to alter. But the question, there is evidence that suggests that there were people who knew in advance that this crash was going to happen. I had reported before about there being one death reported at 4:40, and that was. It turns out that was actually, according to these records, that was actually That was actually 14 minutes before the helicopter that supposedly lifted her out of the water even arrived on scene. So we've got evidence that suggests that there were media players who may have known about it ahead of time, that there was somebody in Honolulu and somebody in Maui who knew about it ahead of time, but possibly. And based on the stories of who reported this crash and the different accounts of how this crash was reported conflict with each other, and somebody is lying, and the only way that we're going to know what really happened and who was lying and who knew about stuff in advance is by getting the radio communications and finding out exactly what happened, because it was claimed that at 3:27, which was precisely when the crash happened, it was at that precise minute, the Honolulu Control Facility was telling the Coast Guard and the Molokai Tower operator that they had already by then received 3 reports of this plane going down from places where they would have had no way of knowing that the plane went down at that point. And so in order to know whether the Honolulu Control Facility knew about the crash in advance and that they were reporting this to the Coast Guard without having any reports, or whether there were people who were on scene and didn't claim to be on scene, like Lang, and so then, well, why did he lie and say he wasn't on scene if he was on scene? Those discrepancies need to be resolved, and the only way we're going to know the truth of what really happened and who is lying is by getting the actual recordings. And I have asked for those recordings, all of the recordings that would help us know who was communicating with who and who knew what and exactly what was going on. And I was told that that what I had requested was going to cost $2,000, and I don't have $2,000, and I actually had my request split up into 2 different parts without telling me that it was split up into 2 different parts so that they could cancel my request. So then I had to file the request again, and it's been a hassle. But I had tried to appeal to say that it is in the public interest that this information be let out, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere with that. So they're kind of holding off, or I'm kind of held at bay by the $2,000 to get the actual recordings to know who's telling the truth.
Right. Okay. Now I'll take it from here for a moment, folks. This is an ongoing process. Now she had asked for this particular piece of documentation. It exists. We know it exists, and it exists in the format in which we are requesting. The request was made. Please provide it to us, and I'm using us here when I probably should be just using her name, but please provide it in the under the auspices of for public interest. In other words, waive the fee, because under the particular process, you can actually have the fee waived if you can prove that it's in the public interest that you need these documents. Well, Butter Dieselian was shot down. They said, no, this is not in the public interest. Okay, so here's in fact, it's not in the public interest. And what we had done, and as myself as a investigative journalist with Canada Free Press here in the United States, made the same appeal, and it was denied. So in other words, they'll give up this information if we pony up $2,000, which is the estimated cost. And correct me if I'm wrong. That's what they're saying. It would they're estimating it would cost to provide the necessary data that you're requesting. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. All right. So this information is absolutely critical to the investigation, to prove that there is mischief, hijinks going on with respect to the plane crash or the plane landing and the death of Loretta Fuddy, which is directly relates to the long-form birth certificate and the authentication thereof. So it's necessary that we, meaning Butter D. Zillion, obtains these documents. And by the way, let me just say this. The Cold Case Posse, this is not in conflict with the Cold Case Posse, Sheriff Arpaio. This is in conjunction with the same. In other words, we are not at odds with them. This is complementary to their efforts. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's absolutely a fair statement.
Okay, good. Because there are people out there saying, "Oh, you're just trying to scoop the Cold Case Posse," which is the furthest thing from the truth. The difference, folks, is they're approaching it from a criminal standpoint. You might say, "Well, why can't they just subpoena this?" Well, folks, it would take hours to explain everything that Butter D. Zillion has gone through and that we've gone through to in order to get these documents or to have these documents, seeking these documents, I suppose. So we are coming at this from a different direction, and that doesn't make it wrong. It's just different. That doesn't make the Cold Case Posse impotent. It makes they're just going going at this in a parallel manner. So, bottom line here, we are in need of these of the actual recordings, and I won't get any. I won't be any more specific. These records in the various formats, okay? Which again, the government said, pony up the $2,000, and yeah, we'll turn them over to you. Is that pretty much right? Correct?
Yeah, that's pretty much right. And basically, the reason that they gave for denying the public interest fee waiver was because they said that there's only a small niche in the country that cares at all about this at all. And I just something that I kind of want to say here is that Judicial Watch managed to get a court to force the State Department to cough up the emails where it was shown that the narrative regarding the Benghazi massacre happening as a result of a video was really to hide the overarching policy failures there. And since that email has come forward, we've got there's going to be the House investigation and all of this stuff. That discussion should have happened before the 2012 election, because those records should have been disclosed before then. And the bureaucrats were able to hold off by disobeying FOIA, and they were able to hold off so that they could have the election and we could have 2 years of a usurper in office doing all the damage that he wants to. And all of that was enabled because they sat on those records and basically said, if you don't force me to obey the law, then I'm not going to obey the law. And they were able to put it off for 2 years. And so we've had 2 years of havoc because of that. And now, in this instance, they're saying, well, nobody cares about this. Nobody cares that this crash was known in advance. Nobody cares that there were extra people in the water, which had to have been planned in advance, and that all this stuff was going on. Nobody cares, and that's their excuse for saying nobody should ever have a chance to find out because nobody cares. And I think that we really need to let the bureaucrats know that people do care. Maybe nobody that they know, but the people of America do care.
and folks, that's why I asked Butter D. Zillion to come on this evening. Here is the critical moment. Here's the critical situation. Time is not on our side. Let me just be perfectly frank with you. Time is not on our side. We need, Butter D. Zillion needs, we need collectively to get our hands on this information. This is absolutely critical. And getting our hands on this will do one of two things. It'll confirm. Well, it'll do more than that, but I mean, it'll confirm the inconsistencies that are evident already, or at the worst possible case scenario for us, it'll be so obviously edited, like the certificate of live birth was, or so obviously tampered with, that the criminality behind it will be just blatant, and it will be a news story by in and of itself. I mean, it'll be in our faces. It'll be overt. So here's the after hours upon hours of talking with Judy McLeod from Canada Free Press and dealing with journalists and talking with others, experts on this, Butter D. Zillion just said something. No one, the government says, oh, just this tiny niche of people, this crazy little group of people really care about it, so this is not in the public interest. So here's what, folks, here's what I am asking the Hagmann and Hagmann audience to do, to prove that you're different than other audiences, and I know you are. We could ask for a person to donate $1,000 or $2,000. We're not asking for that at all. That's not what we're asking for. What we're asking for is for enough people, a showing of people, to maybe send $20 for the sole purpose, the only purpose of document retrieval from the federal government for $2,000. In other words, if you $20, $10, $20. If we can get 100 people sending $20 or 200 people sending $10, that will show the government that we're not talking about this crazy niche of people. We're talking about people who really want answers, that we are different than other audiences, that the price of justice, the price of truth. I mean, this is scripturally, who will be valiant for the sake of justice, for justice' sake. So what we're asking for is as many people as possible to send in just $10 or $20. If we have 100 people send in $20, my math is correct, right? Yeah. That okay. Thank you. Or 200 people send in $10. Again, if my math is correct. What we're asking for is for an immediate, and we've never asked for this before, but we want to send a message to the government that you folks are different, that the listeners are different, that we care. And it's easy to hold up a banner. It's easier to send an email. It's easy to send a whatever. But to reach into your pocket for $10 or for movie money or for coffee money, whatever. What we'll do, if you can send the money, is if we can get a couple hundred people to send in $10 or 100 people to send in 20 to our offices, we will in turn, and I mean, we've got to do this right now before this evidence is destroyed. Everything will be audited. Boy, if you know Butter D. Zillion, you know that she is a woman of integrity and character, and she'll keep us honest, and we keep each other honest. But the fact of the matter is, that money will be used solely for the purposes of document retrieval, and anything extra we can deal with. Like if we get a bunch extra more money, we'll deal with that at a later time. But we'll let full transparency on this. But the fact is, we've got to show that our audience is different, that our audience cares. We're not just talk. Let's send a message, that send a statement that, no, we're not going to accept we're not going to let Butter D. Zillion's art and everyone associated with this, their blood, sweat, and tears that went into this investigation, be thwarted by the fees. Let's win on. We can win by the numbers. We have to win by the numbers. So what we're asking tonight, what I'm asking, me, Doug Hagmann, what I'm asking, not Butter D. Zillion, but me, what I'm asking, is to assist this internet researcher via Hagmann and Hagmann report, Hagmann Investigative Services, actually, which is the parent company, to send in $10 or $20 to $2,000, so we can get these records. I can get this money to her so she can get these records right away. Does that sound about right? Did I make my case, or did I screw that up?
No, I think you made the case. And Doug, something else that should be said is there are already discrepancies that I can see in these records, but I can't say anything about them yet, because if I say anything about the discrepancies, any details about the discrepancies that I already see, it will clue people into what to change. And so I am sitting on information that I cannot share at this point, because I have to have the records before I disclose any of this stuff, because it could impact. It's kind of like when you take witnesses into a different room and you question them apart from each other, because if one knows what the other one said, then they'll change their testimony. And we know that the government does this. And so yeah. I'm waiting. I can't move forward until I have the records, because then they can't change it. And so there's evidence already that's there that needs to be brought out, but I can't do anything. My hands are tied until I can get these records, so that they can't fudge those.
Absolutely. And the folks, again, we've got to be a little bit reserved as to what we can say, or what she can say with respect to what records are being sought. But I understand they're voluminous, and it's not a case of extortion by the federal government. It's a legitimate figure. So the government is not extorting the general public. It's a legitimate figure. But the fact is, they're not counting on the public interest. They're not counting on people gathering together and losing because there are enough interested people here. So so what you just said too. Without giving any information that would compromise your investigation and the collective investigation, you're going to have to trust us in terms, and we will at the end, and just assure me too, and assure the audience at the end, we will in fact be very transparent with the costs and everything, and what we got for that particular fund. Is that fair?
Yeah, and one other thing that should be said too is that what happens here can yield actionable law enforcement information, and we have the means to bring that about.
Thank you for that. I failed to mention that. That's so important. This is actionable. So you're not throwing your $10 away or $20 away. This is actionable, and working with Butter DeZillion has been an honor, and of course she's been in contact with the Cold Case Posse. I've been in contact with the Cold Case Posse. There's just a parallel investigation going on. This is so important. It's so time sensitive. Now, folks, what I'll do, and just indulge me for a moment while I say this, because this is an investigation, and because I will be giving the money to Butter DeZillion to furnish, Butter DeZillion, how does that work? You make the request, you sign papers, you basically sign a guarantee that you're going to pay for the records. Is that right? I mean, what's the process? Right.
You have to tell them that you're willing to pay the cost that they've told you that it's going to be in order for them to fulfill the request, and they wait until they have your word of honor that you'll be good for that money before they start putting together the records. And then when you get the records, then you have to pay the bill.
Okay. Right. So, I mean, we're going to sign on the dotted line, essentially, and guarantee the money, but we're asking you to show that our audience is different, that you're active, you're proactive, that and I know you are, but we're going to send them a message that we are not going to be stifled, we're not going to be stopped, we're not going to be toyed with. We're sending a statement, and this is part of that. So, because of that, this is an investigation that is totally transparent, and it has to be done in a certain fashion, and this will be audited. The checks money orders, whatever, should be made out to Hagmann Investigative Services Incorporated. The address is on the front page of HomelandSecurityUS.com. It's got to be done quickly, folks. It's got to be done within the next, as soon as you hear this, fire off a check. And in the memo section, or just write it on a Post-it note, just put document retrieval, or what would you say? Butter design, some type of note that would FOIA or something to that effect. Okay.
Yeah, that would.
Okay, that will separate this money as soon as because we're going to guarantee. We know you as an audience, so we're going to guarantee this, but we're asking for all of you to make a statement, and we're going to get these records, but we have to do it right away. And I don't want to sound like I'm begging here, but it's more like making a statement, saying, you know what, we want this information. You're not going to stop us by a prohibitive fee, and doggone it, we're going to get it. And then once you get it, and evaluate everything, it's going to be turned over to the appropriate authorities, and it's going to be published. So not only in the court of America, but in the court of public opinion as well. Is that a fair statement?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. You've done some marvelous work, I've got to tell you. Folks, please go to Butter Dezillion's blog. It's linked off of the front page of our website. I've never asked for anything like this ever in the course of our radio program, but this is so. You are at such a critical juncture right now in your investigation.
Yeah, there is so much. I am just biting my tongue. There is so much I wish I could say, but I can't at this point.
Man, I'll tell you. And folks, just the volume of data that she has had to contend with, the conclusions that are so obvious when this report is made public, when the actionable intelligence is given to the appropriate law enforcement bodies, and we can't get into that, but the bottom line is this is stuff that will change the course of history. And I don't want to sound like I'm overstating the case. I just want to it's that important. It really is. But is there anything else that I left out that we probably should have gone over?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. All right. Blink twice if I'm holding you against your will. I'm just kidding. No, you've seriously, you've found so many discrepancies. It's just incredible, and I just people just have to understand the implications. And my last question to you: being successful in getting this, what would be the implications in your estimation?
Well, we're going to find out who knew about that crash beforehand. I mean, what we see in the video is, that visually you can see something in the story does not line up. In the same way, by looking at a lot of details in the records, you look at it and you say these things don't line up. And both kinds of evidence, the visual evidence and the detail-oriented evidence in the reports, it all adds up to that something was fishy with that crash, and specifically that crash was planned. And when we can document that, then the public really has the opportunity to say who planned that crash and why. And I think we deserve answers to those questions.
We do, and you and together we can change the course of history. We can make a difference. This is one time our audience, each and every one of you, can make a big difference. And we're not asking for a lot. It's just like I said, $10 or $20. Since we've been talking about this, I want to say this. I've got 4 people from California pledging to send each $10 tomorrow. I've got 3 people from Florida pledging $20. 220, 110. 2 people from Maryland, 1 person from Pennsylvania, 1 person from Kansas. So it's a start. This is a start. Thank you. So people, the Hagmann and Hagmann audience is different than others, but please don't let that stop you. We need this to get the records, and we're signing on the dotted line tomorrow, and knowing that you're going to come through for all of us, but or for us and for the truth, because we're not going to be stymied by this. And I just want to thank you, Butter Zillion, for all of the research and all of the hard work you put into this, and thank you so much for agreeing to take time out of your busy schedule to appear tonight.
You're welcome. I guess there's one other thing that I would like to say, and that is that there has been an all-out effort through many different means to try to convince me that I am alone. And it goes from emails being stolen. Doug, you and I, we've had our communications interrupted so that I didn't receive any of the, the encouraging email that you sent me, comments from people who had responded to the last interview and such. There was a definite effort to cut me off from all my sources of support, and to try to defame me and basically to make me feel alone. They do that. They cut people off. They cut people off from the herd so that they can take them aside and kill them. And so they would really like me to think that I'm the only one who cares about this, that I'm crazy because I care about this. Nobody else cares about this, and I am utterly alone in the world, so give up and die. That's the psyops that they're trying to do on me, and they do it on all the researchers, I believe. And so a big part of this, too, is just knowing that we're not alone, knowing that there are other people who care about this and that we stand together. That means an awful lot.
I couldn't have said that any better, and we will put your email address, your public email address as well. I'm going to do a blurb on our website about this initiative, how important it is, kind of just in generalities, and include your email address. And folks, drop her a line. Let her know that her efforts are appreciated. She's doing this at the expense of her family. She could be doing things with her family, and she's not. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and it's time consuming. There's a lot of time you spent in this investigation, more hours than you could probably count, at great expense, at your own expense. And I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome. I think the country's worth it if we can keep her.
I totally agree. With that, I will let you go. I know that you've got things to do, but God bless you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for informing our audience as to where we're at with this, and we will prevail. I promise you that. We'll talk off air. We'll talk tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks, Doug.
All right.
Thank you.
Folks, that was Butter Zillion. Please visit her blog. Go to HomelandSecurityUS.com. Click on the link on the right where it says Our Two Guests, Butter Zillion. Check out the research she's done. If anyone, let me tell you something. If anyone, you talk about research done, so much research at the expense of her family, at the expense of, it's just the blood, the sweat, the tears. I mean, perhaps I'm overstating it by blood, but the hours that she has put in, and that collectively we've put in to get to the truth of this matter. This is where you can come through, and this is the first time I've ever done this on radio. I've asked for this kind of help, but it's not really the well, it's the money, but it's showing that there is public interest, that it's showing that there is no price for justice and for truth that shouldn't be met, that there is public interest, that we can ante up. We're willing to ante up. We're not just talkers. We're not just keyboard warriors. We're sending a message that we do care. We're sending a statement. We will win by the numbers. We will let them know. Everybody's just got to show up. This is something tangible you can do. So, again, the initiative is for the listeners to send $10 or $20. The more, the better. Again, not looking for big donors. Looking for the public interest, the numbers. Send them a message. And of course, Hagmann Investigative Services Incorporated. That's the where to send it to, or who to make it out to. Everything will be audited, up front, published. And once the evidence is in our hands collectively, I think you'll see exactly how important this is. I just want to thank you for listening. But this is, boy, I just wish I could get into I just wish, like her, I'm biting my tongue because it's right there, and it's the enormity of the lie, the collusion, the conspiracy. It's not a theory; it's a fact. I want to thank you all for your supportive emails, and of course, Butter Zillion for what she's doing.
We're going to open the phone lines for the third and final hour coming up after the break. So give us a call at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. One piece of news here before we do go to break. The United States is holding massive nuclear weapon exercises to deter and detect strategic attacks just days after a Russian drill. And this says from Zero Hedge, last week, in what should have not been a surprise to anybody, but was a major shock due to its intensity and expansiveness, Russia held a simulated massive nuclear attack drill, coming in a time when the tensions over there are pretty high. Now you have U.S. and NATO forces conducting Exercise Global Lightning 14 from May 12th to the 14th in coordination with other combats. And it says services appropriated by U.S. government agencies to detect strategic attacks against the United States and its allies. Stratcom was quick to point out that the Exercise Global Lightning has been planned for more than a year and is based on a national scenario. It quickly added that the timing of the exercise was unrelated to the real-world events, but those who believe that Russia's massive nuclear drill was also unrelated to the world will fall for this particular embellishment. As Defense One observes, according to Mark Schneider, a former U.S. military Defense Department nuclear strategy official, told Washington Free Beacon that Russia's drill last week seemed aimed at sending a message of nuclear intimidation to the United States and NATO over Ukraine. He noted that Moscow typically stages its atomic exercises in the fall. And this is something that we need to keep our eye on, as we know the tensions and conflicts are continuing over there between Ukraine, the European Union, and Russia. And they are holding back to, whether it's Russia or the United States, these simulated nuclear drills are being held, and is definitely something that we need to keep our eye on, as the situation there is very volatile, and things can happen that could make it get very serious in a manner we might not expect. With that, we're going to take the break now. We'll be right back after these short messages. And once again, the number to call in is 661-244-9839. If you'd like to call in and offer your opinion on anything we touched or didn't touch tonight, we'll be right back after these short messages. Stay with us.
And there was silence in heaven for a half hour. You know, folks, do you feel that we're in that moment in time where, I don't know, it's the calm before the storm, or maybe just at that precipice before some type of events or series of events, or those of us plugged in, we can see the events taking place. Well, here's what I recommend. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. That's AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Get prepared. I got an email here. I'm not going to promote any package. Let me just read very quickly from an email I got today, Monday, May 12th at 6:20 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm going to be very careful with how I'm going to be respectful of privacy. This emailer, and I'll just call her Kay, from Canada, writes, I just wanted to tell you, hi Doug, I just wanted to tell you about my experience with American Survival Wholesale. On your recommendation, I considered a purchase of long-term storage food. I sent an email ahead of the order because I had questions due to the fact that I require the purchase to be shipped to Canada. And I was unsure which product would best suit my needs. The owner called me back, not by email. I mean, didn't send me an email, but called me back, and we discussed my situation and needs at length. The owner was extremely helpful about many matters that I have been concerned about. After terminating the call, I thought of other things to ask and sent another email. Rather than responding via email, he called me again and helped me with an order. And that's where I'll stop. She writes, I don't have a lot of money to make these kinds of preparations, to make these kind of purchases. And there doesn't seem to be much choice of product here where I live. Those vendors that I have questioned have been mostly curt and abrupt, leaving me with little or no.
Hour of this Monday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, where we're taking your phone calls, as we want to hear from you as to what is on your mind on any stories we covered, did not cover, and anything that's going on in the world as you see it. A note I just saw here that we talked about this a little bit last week, this satanic black mass that was going to be taking place at Harvard has been canceled due to public outcry against the grossness of this, and that is a good sign. But on News with Views, Paul McGuire has an excellent article up, Satanic Black Mass at Harvard and Satanic Monument in Oklahoma. He'll be a guest later on this week on Thursday. Tomorrow we have Stan Deo. Wednesday we have Doc Marquis. Thursday we have Paul McGuire. And there's somebody lined up for Friday possibly. We're just waiting on a confirmation, so we'll announce that later. But once again, News with Views, Paul McGuire's article, Satanic Black Mass at Harvard, Satanic Monument in Oklahoma. Check that out, as it is a very good read. With that,
I got to wait a minute before we go to the calls. I got a quiz for the listening audience. Who said this? The budget should be balanced. The treasury should be refilled. Public debt should be reduced. The arrogance of officialdom should be tempered and controlled. And the assistance to foreign lands should be curtailed.
Obama?
Lest we will become bankrupt. People must again learn to work instead of living on public assistance. Who said that? It wasn't Obama.
Don't know.
It was before your time. It was before my time. Yeah, I'll tell you. It was Cicero in 55 BC talking about Rome. Can you believe that?
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
As these nations, powerhouses such as ours, are just recycled kingdoms putting together the best snares into a government in order to engross and snare more people as a whole as they continue to fall and reemerge. But with that, we will go to the phones. We're going to go to area code 206 first. 2:06. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Guys, it's great to be able to talk to you.
It's good to hear from you.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
good.
Great. It's great to have you talk to us.
Wow, Doug and Joe. Well, I'm a regular listener to you guys and to Paul Begley every day, and kind of injured my foot a while back, pretty bad, and so I'm just pretty much a homebody. But I listen to you guys every day, and well, I just love the stories that you guys talk about and the truth that's being put over the waves there of the air and the internet, and it's really great to be able to get the real truth of what's going on behind the scenes.
So, would you give us a passing grade, C, B plus kind of thing, then?
Doug and Joe, well, Doug, A plus, 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 plus. Joe, A plus, 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 plus.
Cool.
How's that?
That's great, buddy. Thank you. and believe me, I got the extra couple of pluses for Joe, which that's fine. That's cool. I like that, and I'm proud. And it actually makes me proud. So thank you.
Nice. How you doing, Joe?
Sorry, I was muted there. I'm doing fantastic.
Nice. So, Joe, how long have you been on the air with your father?
About 3 years now, at least 3.5 years since 2011.
Yeah.
About 3 years.
Yeah. I think I've kind of seen your style of broadcasting mature since you first came on the air. I remember when you first came on that you were pretty much laid back, and I think maybe you were just taking a lot of stuff in at that time. Am I correct?
Yeah, as this was very new to me, just kind of going with the flow, learning how things work, and the best way to, articulate things over the air, and at the same time knowing to talk, and then knowing when to shut up.
And just one more curiosity I have about you, Joe. How was it that what age were you when you became knowledgeable or aware that something wasn't right within government or world policies or affairs?
Oh, I'd say 2006, 2007.
So that would make you how old at the time? 30? No, 28.
No,
26.
I'm 31. I just turned 31 7 years ago.
So, okay.
25.
Yeah. Look how great my math is.
And what was it you began to notice first that got your curiosity going?
Well, 9/11 and the inconsistencies there. And then doing research led me to a lot of governmental corruption and led me back to the Bible. And then from there, that's what I've been doing ever since.
Hey, did you ever see those close-ups on there's a YouTube video that talks about further investigation. It was another documentary after the Alex Jones stuff came out. I think there was another one on YouTube that showed where the towers looked like they were actually disintegrating as they fell over. Did you see that when they did the close-ups?
Oh, yeah. And we've done shows with Richard Gage from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth to Judy Wood. I think her.
Were they using space weapons? Were they using space weapons?
That's what Judy Wood concluded, but to me, they did something to whether it was whatever weapons they used were something I believe that we do not understand or do not know and are not available to the public, but buildings and cement and planes do not all disintegrate. At the same time, you have terrorist passports flying out of pockets into the streets to be found by NYPD. You look at Building 7, which had a few small fires. In Barry Jennings' testimony, that being the CIA building, the mayor's bunker, not hit by a plane, 47 stories high, closing in on itself. 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
The BBC messed up on that one real bad. They showed they were talking about the building being imploded already before it even fell.
Yeah, while it was in the background.
Yeah, it was caught on video. Yeah.
Yeah.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah.
And that building demolitioned. It had to have been. I mean, there's no way that it could have fallen, 47 stories into its own footprint. We have the first building here in Seattle that was built was a 50-story bank building, so that's only 3 more stories taller. And that one in New York, that 47-story building, you're right, only had a few small fires on it. There was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, there's, like I said, Barry Jennings, who subsequently passed away, and there was another gentleman who was with him inside the building 7 in the middle of the day as it was having explosions, and they said they were trying to, get down the stairs, and the stairwells were collapsing from the explosions, 5 hours before the building collapsed. And
right.
And it's just crazy. That was one of that building 7 and the Pentagon were the 2 huge inconsistencies and holes that really made me start digging deep into that to find out the truth.
Yeah, and now we're finding out that just so many more things are happening and being covered over and lied about, and I don't even watch TV news. I haven't watched it. It just makes me sick to my stomach to have to watch it. Even the local news, I don't watch that. I don't listen to it on the radio. I get my news strictly off of alternative news media sources. Yeah,
the mainstream media. There's a story today how much CNN has been failing, and for the first time ever, or in the recent TV age, under 250,000 viewers. They say, which is some huge paradigm switch from how it was 10 years ago. And it's astonishing that most people are flocking to the alternative media, but sadly, there are many alternative media people who are just disinformation people and people causing division. But it is better to seek the truth for yourself and to get away from that mainstream collective, I guess, brainchild that you see there.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because it's just constant brainwashing of non-truth and innuendo and just, I don't know, just stuff to distract, I guess, is the best I can say about it. I mean, they don't even talk about the real events and things that are going on. I mean, it's just mostly just filler junk.
Absolutely. Anything else on your mind?
No, I'm gonna let you go talk to someone else. I'm just very excited to be a first-time caller, and just I'm listening to you here from Tukwila, Seattle, Washington.
Well, take care of that.
Enjoying a beautiful day of weather up here.
Yes. Well, it's the weather in our part of the country was nice today as well. We had a little bit of rain, but finally some warmer temperatures. Take care of that foot. God bless, and thanks for the call.
God bless you, fellas.
Have a great night.
Thank
you. All right,
moving right along, we're going to go to area code 210. 210, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind today?
Good evening. I'm a high-time pilot. I've flown a lot of different types of airplanes, including the Caravan. And it occurs to me that there are several ways to stop the power of that particular Pratt & Whitney engine. I'm just wondering if a couple of things. Number one, has anybody interviewed the pilot of the airplane with exactly what conditions he reported? Number two, are there any security video cameras that were pointed towards the incident from the airport or residences or properties? Because I would think that a servo mounted in attached to the engine to the fuel controller from a short-range radio transmission could have shut that engine down very efficiently and caused it to land or crash into the water. It would just be. Go ahead.
You sound like a pilot, by the way. You sound like a pilot should sound like over the loudspeakers saying, thank you for flying with us. But let me address number two. Yes. And that's about security, other footage, yes. And
that's good.
that treads into what we're trying to get.
Yeah.
It kind of overlaps into that. Now, the first part is... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I heard it at some point from Butter to Zillion, perhaps not on tonight's episode because I did tune in late, but on a previous one, that she said there was audio inside the aircraft of a master caution alarm going off, which was probably the low torque sensor on the engine, and that would imply, a fuel controller issue.
And what would that...
It just happened so close to shore that it was probably a radio transmission since it happened close to shore, and they wanted to ensure that it, had good RF connectivity to the airplane.
Oh, so so a deliberate, you're saying a deliberate device attached. Is that what you're saying? Perhaps?
Absolutely. That's what I'm surmising. Yeah, and
okay.
Which brings up the next question. The third question is: has there been a recovery effort to get the engine and do an engine teardown report? Because that will, tell a lot of things about what happened to that power plant.
They're
incredibly reliable power plants.
Yeah,
they're not locating wreck.
Well, they know. I mean, obviously, they know where the wreck went down. They know where it went down, and they brought. There was a recovery effort. Do you know about that, right? Do you know about the recovery?
I don't know about it. Was it a military effort or was it a civilian effort?
It's my understanding it was civilian with military support, or at least when I say military, subcontractor support.
Well, the NTSB should be in charge of the analysis of what caused that engine to fail and require a teardown analysis of that power plant. All accessories, all records, everything. And that's a matter of settled law that the NTSB has jurisdiction over power plant failures on aircraft, particularly in commercial service.
Have you seen the NTSB report that was posted online?
I have not. No, I have not read it.
All right.
I've not seen it. What does it say?
Nothing. And I'm being very serious. They didn't even respond to the scene. That there was no on-site investigation by the NTSB.
Now that's highly suspect because an engine failure is a mandatory report, particularly in 121 carrier operations, which this was. I don't think it was Part 135. I think it was air carrier, and that's absolutely mandatory.
In your experience, how solid are these planes and the plane engines in this particular model?
Extreme. Well, those are Pratt & Whitney engines. In fact, the decal that goes on the engine it says reliable engines, and that's what it's a Canadian-built power plant, but it's absolutely utterly reliable. And of course, they can fail. There's various failure modes, but they are extremely reliable power plants.
Fantastic.
It's a turboprop engine. It's not a piston engine. It's a turboprop engine, which is a jet engine driving a propeller through a planetary gear system. And
wow.
It's just very reliable.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, and with respect to the pilot, we're going to reserve comment on that because of the investigation going on, if you don't mind. That's just something that there's some issues with.
Yeah, I understand.
Interesting.
He's probably been compromised.
Now, you being a pilot, knowing what you know about that water landing / crash, you feel that there's enough questions there that people should be asking questions, or enough?
Well, what I heard from the previous report from Butter to Zillion was she mentioned it one time, which I thought was interesting. She said she noticed a rebreather system, or she thought she noticed rebreather systems, as well as a military helicopter in the air. So that's who you would drop in the water, would be some, SEAL-like operatives with rebreather packs. so they could, get on scene quickly, probably with underwater power packs to help them around that they could just flood and drop, get them out of the way, and continue with whatever they did with Loretta Fuddy.
You win the prize. Captain, thank you so much. Any other closing thoughts?
No, I'm just trying to figure it out like everybody else, but having it happen very close to shore like that, I think there's an RF component involved, some sort of a radio transmitter component, and probably a device on the fuel controller. If I was an accident investigator, which I'm not, that's where I would start looking at the actual hardware.
Interesting. Okay. Well, very, very good. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you for your call.
Take care. You bet.
Wow. Folks, didn't he sound like a pilot? I mean, he sounded like a guy I would trust. Seriously. Buckle your seatbelts for, weather's fine, and he just sounded like a pilot. Interesting.
All right, let's go to area code 303, calling from Colorado. Hopefully not in the Rockies where they're getting all that snow. Caller from Colorado, You're live on the air.
Yeah, hi, Doug and Joe. This is Bill. Yeah, I am in the snow, but I'm not in the mountains. I'm out on the plains. I was listening to your show last night, and I just wanted to call in and give a good word for your shows on Sundays. I go into the prisons on Sundays, and probably the last 4 or 5 times when you've had Pastor Langford and Steve Quayle on, I mean, all the way down to giving examples and using Scripture 4 or 5 times every Sunday that they talk, and they're doing the same message that I had given in the morning. So just wanted to let you know that I really support those Sunday shows, and y'all keep up the great work. And
thank you for what you do. I mean, what you do can't be easy. My goodness.
Oh no, I know how good Sundays are going to be by how terrible the weeks are. If you have a real bad week all week long, you're being torn up. On Sunday, Sundays are great. And also I got Brother Marcus. Remember I sent you an email on the shofar?
Yeah.
Well, I got the shofar sent off to him, and that a couple days later, and we communicated some, and so he's on my prayer list too, and so I just wanted to call in and just tell you all that I'm just I agree in the spirit with what's going on, and also I dropped a $10 bill on a letter that's going out tomorrow for you. And
that'll be for the documentation initiative, and thank you. And the people's voice will be heard. God bless you for that. I'm telling you, our audience is the best in the world, and full transparency. But the price, what price liberty, what price justice, what price truth. God bless you, my friend.
Yep. God bless you all too. And I'm praying for everybody on a regular basis. Thanks.
It's much needed, and thank you. And God bless you for what you do. You have a great night.
You too. Thanks.
All right. A great call. We're going to move right along here. Area code 714. 714, you're up next. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, thank you. Nice to talk with you. I'm a first-time caller. Been listening, a few years. What's his name? Steve Quayle is quoted as saying, you can't solve the problem as to how to restore the constitutional republic with political action. It's a spiritual solution, right? That's what he says?
Yeah, there's no political solution to a spiritual problem.
Right. Well, as I've been listening, one of the things that is rumbling in my heart from a Christian woman's perspective is there are probably 500,000 churches around the United States and territories. And if there's 500,000 churches and there's 2 men, in each of these areas, if these men would go to the churches, go in their church, attend church, and hold the pastor, preacher accountable for preaching against sin wherever it's at. If it's in government, if it's in the judiciary, if it's in the local areas, if it's in any part, they have to be held accountable to preach against sin. And, we're all pondering how to turn this around. But the solution is only going to, if there is going to be one, I have to ask men who are real men to go to church and get that pastor, that preacher, whatever, and say, why don't we hear you bringing up, lectures against thievery, destroying the substance of men who are trying to provide for their families through fiat money, or the Congress that has exempted itself from the Obamacare, or any number of other examples. Obama's wife was put up on a picture saying, bring our girls back, and then on Alex Jones, one of his writers had a picture, bring the drones back, that have killed hundreds, if not thousands of children. I mean, murder is wrong. The preachers, if they're not at the pulpit preaching against sin, then the nation's going to fall. So I would ask men out there, if you're a man of God, that you would have the Holy Spirit fortitude to go to your local church, hear what he's saying, the preacher, or if it's a woman preacher, ask her, why are you preaching when the Word of God clearly says that women aren't to be preaching in the pulpits, Why don't we have men? It'd be so easy. In a week, in 3 weeks, in 1 month, we could have hundreds of thousands of churches where men are confronting the men at the pulpit and holding them accountable. I just wanted to get that out there because we all want a word. We all want something to say. We want to have an impact. Well, gentlemen, men of God, have an impact. Go to church, confront the preachers, and talk to them in love, speaking the truth in love and saying, if you're not preaching against sin, I am going to warn the people in this church not to do this, not to come here. And that'd be a rumble throughout the whole nation, in every state, in every county. That'd be a rumble. That would show a tremendous movement in the men of God that are left in this nation. If every state of every county had men going to church starting this Sunday, how about this Wednesday night, midweek church, and holding the preacher accountable and saying, you better preach about sin, you better inform the people, and you better preach against the local city council members, preach against the local judge, preach against the local state representatives, the governor, preach against the state senator, preach against fiat money, and preach against sin and hypocrisy. And, wow, wouldn't that be something you could have in 1 month, a turnaround?
Exactly. And you started out by saying, by referencing Steve Quayle, saying there's no political solution to the spiritual problem, and you came up with a spiritual solution. And people might say, well, our country is cooked. It's going in. It's down. It's over. The great experiment is done. And I liken I compare what you're saying to, for example, being on the Titanic or a big ship. We know the ship is sinking. We know it's going to sink. But that doesn't mean that the men aboard the ship, should not attempt to assist the young ladies and the helpless, the infirmed, those people in need to the lifeboats, or to get them out of their lower deck cabins and to awaken them to say, hey, the ship's sinking. Come on, let's get up on board. So that's what you're kind of saying that we need to do, despite the fate of the ship itself. It's the people on the ship. Is that kind of a good analogy?
Yes. I saw my first 8mm video of the United Nations forces murdering the innocent and the health care givers. My dad was a Republican precinct man. He was an agnostic. And I was on his shoulders in 1960 at Goldwater's campaigns in Wheaton, Illinois. So my father was a wonderful man. He understood the problem, and he fought valiantly to inform people, educate them. And he was a member of the John Birch Society. I saw that 8mm movie at a John Birch meeting. I met Griffith, and who wrote the Dr. Hyde, or Jekyll Island, rather. And I had my first youth group in the John Birch Society in the middle 60s, late 60s, with the Youth Speaker Forum. All my life, I have warned people about the Federal Reserve since I was a teenager, and I'm 60 years old now. And I've been laughed at, and I have had teachers, even in the 60s, when it was relatively conservative, they had change agents way back then. And I was identified in the high school as a over-educated nerd, bookworm, and laughed at and made fun of, and the teacher would talk over me, these kind of things. So what I'm saying is, what I've seen is, I'm talking from perspective so that you can get an understanding. And my dad, who was an agnostic, was so crushed. He would give his money, way back then, to buy information, articles to spread. I went door to door as a young girl, as a young wife, as a teenager. Back then we had what was called the Review of the News, and we would pass these things out. It had the voting record of all the congressmen that would be put out on issues,
Right.
So we had the facts. You couldn't argue with us, but here's that, self-delusional, I don't want to hear it thing. So in perspective, in time, I started finding the Lord Jesus Christ as my Savior. And I talked to my dad, and I said, Dad, even our forefathers, because he made us read the Federalist Papers and so forth, I said, even our forefathers had written down that unless you have a moral people, this Constitution of the Republic is written for a morally self-disciplined people. So I told my dad, and he's in heaven now because he became a Christian later in life, and he said, you're right. We didn't raise people to be morally led by the Holy Spirit, and it's all a spiritual solution. This Constitution was written for a moral people, a self-disciplined people. So to men, I say, please go to church. Please hold these pastors, these preachers accountable in love. Educate them and say, you must do this, or you are clearly a hireling preacher. You're more interested in your 401k, your retirement, your parsonage, or whatever there. But we have a country that's falling apart. We have abortions going on. And I don't hear you preach against sin. I hear you preach little 10 steps to be a successful Christian sermon kind of thing, and you don't use scriptures. Do this, men. Go to every church in every community and hold them accountable week after each sermon. And
we can do that. Thank you. Yes,
that's something they can do.
Yes, and everyone can do that. And we need to hold ourselves accountable. We need to hold those around us accountable to preach the word as it must be preached. And God bless you. Well, I want to thank you so much for your call. What a great call. God bless you.
God bless you.
All right.
And
thanks.
God bless America. If there's anything to bless, like was said, is there anything left to bless? With so much moral decline and abortions and lies and not being able to refer to Deuteronomy 23:13, that it's an abhorrence to God for him to see a man to lie with a man.
Yeah.
So you have to say, if you're going to say God bless America, what is left to bless? So men, go and reclaim what we can call blessed. Okay. Thank you so much,
Amen.
Doug and Joe.
God bless.
God bless.
All right. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Yep, indeed. We need to be proactive. It's like I said before, just reminding people about the initiative. It's a numbers game. We're not looking for 2 donors or 1,000 apiece, or 1 for 2,000 or 10 or We're looking for the numbers to show that there's public interest and that people are taught. That we just don't talk. We're different. We act, and that's what we need to send, that message that we are doers, whether it be, as this woman said, regardless of the issue, we're different. We do care.
Yeah, absolutely. And what she said about the church, I had several conversations with a few guests that off air that we talked about this, that we need to go into the churches and try to get the message out there and hold these preachers accountable and through meekness and kindness, offer correction. And if they don't listen from there, then that is on them. But if we do not do our job as far as warning them, then that could be on us. So before we write off, any churches, we need to make sure that we do our part in warning them and showing them what is going on. And then from there, if they choose to listen or they not, that is on them. But we have to do our part. Moving along here, area code 360. We're going to come to you, and you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, Doug and Joe. How are you tonight?
Very well, thanks. What's up?
Okay. Well, just to respond to that young lady that just called, I too am not a fatalist. I think we have to be proactive, but I'm just going to tell her that there's a lot of us that have done that, and what happens is you're asked to leave the church. And we've gone to many different churches, and my church today is the Hagmanns and Pastor Langford and Steve Quayle. Even though he's rough around the edges, the man is a godly man, and he speaks the truth. And granted, the truth is offensive. We're to be doers and not just hearers of the word. But when you go into these churches, you have to realize that they are hirelings. They have been indoctrinated like the school children by their college training. You go into the church. It's a 501c3 church. They'll tell you what you want to hear, maybe up to a year. Hey, we're going to look into it. Hey, we'll get back to you. It goes on and on and on. And nothing ever changes. Every second message is on tithing. They're getting bigger houses and driving nicer cars. About the time the pastor got a Cadillac Escalade, I was out of there on the last one I was at. So anyways, my church is, and I'm not embarrassed to say it, is Langford. My son started his own radio show, and we talked about that, Voice in the Wilderness, and he's 21, and I know those guys were saying, boy, so that there are differences that can be made. Like my son starting a show, and he's just reading the Bible, going through Genesis and just reading the Bible. So there's things we can do, but God says He doesn't reside in a building made with man's hands. We're to be out to the widows, the distressed widows, and the orphans, and there's many things that men can do to stand up. But I hate to say it, but I'm going to be like Steve Quayle now and be a little rough around the edges. You're wasting your time in the churches, unless, and I know there are a few churches out there that are not government run where the pastors are hard preaching and they're telling the truth, and they're not lining themselves up with a we're getting zapped out of here and you got eternal security no matter what you do, once saved, always saved, then go out and live like the devil. There are true churches out there, and so God bless them, and they are making an impact. But they all seem to be, and this isn't really the direction I wanted to go, but I just wanted to comment, they're all driven, Rick Warren, purpose-driven, numbers, church with rock and roll, feel-good music. And I was in one of those for 15 years when I was lost, and it was great because I could stay lost and live in the world and come to church and feel really good about myself and put some money in the bucket. And, man, I was a great person. The truth is that I was on a wide road headed straight to hell. And so, if someone's convicted about making a stand like this young lady is saying, it's going to be with those people that God has placed us in their lives. Some of us have unique relationships where we get to speak into people's lives where if we don't tell them the truth about Jesus Christ and time is short, they may never hear it. But moving on to moreover to a point that I called for tonight is, boy, I'm 100% behind Fuddy and what she's doing, and there's been some other women guests that have called in, and for us single men that are out here, just trying to be godly men, it's tough. But they're not alone, and they need to know they're not alone. There's many people that support you through prayers, and I'm just learning how to fast. It's pretty difficult for me dying to this flesh, but I think that's where Langford again is a good person to listen to. I talked to my pastor when I was in church about that, and they don't even believe in that. So anything that costs and goes against the, you can go to them with Scripture. It doesn't matter. They're just, it takes a spiritual man to get spiritual things. And just because you're wearing the nicest suit in the building doesn't mean that, I'd rather rub elbows with the dirty, rotten, lost scoundrels than I would a hireling, but because they're real and they're honest and they're not lukewarm. But moreover, some of the things I just wanted to comment on, you guys have been hitting it hard, and I just hope that, my concern is for you guys tonight, and the reason I'm calling. And I'm just going to, the statement I'm going to make to this large listening audience is that we, some of us can give. You're not taking any of this with you. I saw a picture the other day of two graves, and over them were they were dug out and 6 foot down, and you look into the hole, and it said, one said rich man and one said poor man. There was absolutely no difference. So, if you do believe that this financial system is not only melting, but it's incinerating, do something while you can. We're all going to be held accountable for what we've got, and to who much is given, much is required. And if you can't, or you're in a point where, you're just, you can't right now, we need to be praying for these men. Because let me tell you, I've talked to Doug and Joe about this. When you're bringing the truth, you're under attack, and so these men need our prayers and our covering, and be lifting them up. And I wanted to ask you: is there? Are they sold out on the Whitestone conference? Is that sold out?
The last time I talked with Steve, he said yes. They were sold out. They reached the point where the venue was filled. the stretch to another venue would be such that they would not do it, and they didn't feel comfortable doing it. So yes, they're sold out at this point.
Wow. I was. It's within a drive for me and my son, and we really want to go. So I don't know. I guess I'll just I'll ask if there's any kind of standby or something like that, because I really want to go there.
Yeah,
right.
Give Mike a call. It's on the Whitestone Remnant Conference website. See what you can do. I could be wrong. Check with them though.
Okay. Yeah, you never know. I mean, get on a wait. If somebody backs out or changes their mind. If I'm one of these guys, everything happens for a reason. So if it's meant to be, it'll happen. We didn't have the money earlier on to go, so now we're just starting to. The grass is growing and we're working, and so praise be to God. Thanks for the seasons. But we are. Doug, I feel it in my soul what you were talking about on a break. It was a pre-recorded thing, and it was just like it was crazy how we can feel this moment before the storm, and there is a heaviness on my heart, whether it be a big event that's coming, these earthquakes, in diverse places. You know me, guys. I've come out and I put myself right out there. And I've lost a lot of friends and whatever, that's fine. But I've gone as far as to say that Obama is the Antichrist, and I've just been watching him really closely. I would love to, there's a few different guests that you've had on that I have a sneaking suspicion that they feel the same way, but haven't out and out said it. Matter of fact, interestingly enough, I would love to ask Stan Dale what he thinks about it, because I think he is on to that as well. But I mean, the guy is absolutely as the old Hawk calls him, the old Joker lizard tut. I don't even think I think the guy was made in a test tube. I really do. I think he personifies the man of perdition that we're looking for. Plus, he's the head of the UN. Just the things, the bills and the things that he's behind are pure wickedness. Plus, he's a homosexual on record. It's all, and we know that, many have looked even further, and his name is revealed everywhere you look. Anything dealing with end-time prophecy, not to get too far out there, but, when the Bible says, when they're asking, who is he? He said, I saw him and he was like lightning. Well, the Hebrew of that is lightning in Hebrew. Look it up. And, everyone chanting, yes, we can, is thank you, Satan. Every chant that he gets going is demonic. And anyways, not to fix on that. We're to fix our eyes on what is good and holy. And, I certainly am not trying to scare anyone, but I'll tell you this, that there is nothing wrong with grown men. And if I do get to this conference, I would be thrilled if I could be with men like you that would humble themselves before the Lord, and regardless if these churches are apostate, that we could still get on our knees. We can still get on our knees and pray together. I'm not embarrassed of Jesus Christ. I'm not. And I think that'd be a wonderful thing, not for a showmanship, but I just have a feeling we're like-minded, and I know your guys' heart from listening to you night after night that, those are things we can do. And prayer does change things. Amen. And there are many people that are yoked with you in this fight, and it's it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, I'm telling people the truth and directing them and pointing them to Jesus Christ. But a lot of us are in dire financial with this. And if you're willing to compromise, there's a lot of people still doing really well. If you don't want to compromise, it's tough times out there. But the Lord still blesses. I prayed and prayed and prayed for this contract we used to have 4 years ago, and the guy that runs the show is not a Christian. He had to lie to actually get rid of us because we had a perfect safety record. But the Lord will even make our enemies get along with us. Amen. We got the job back, and so we start here in a few weeks. And like I said, I'm more excited to be able to. we don't drive new cars. My truck's got 250,000 on it, and all of our rigs are miled up, but we got a nice place, and I'm excited to keep our vineyard, number one, and number two, I can't wait to start spreading some of that money around. You know, I mean, how exciting is that to bless the people that I care about? You know.
Absolutely.
So, anyways,
all right. God bless
I mean,
you,
it's exciting. God bless you guys, and just know there's guys out here praying for you.
All right, brother. Thanks so much for your call.
In your territory. God bless.
Take care. Yeah, talk about mileage on cars. I'm sure you folks out there, my wife and I, between both of our cars, we've got, let's see, I don't know, maybe 290,000 miles on collector, you know, in total.
I've had the same car for 10 years, and
so, hey, that's
I like it.
You know what? Yeah, that's you know these people who drive. I mean, you know, when you're, to me, if you had a church, I mean, boy, would I feel funny if I was a leader of a church and driving like a Cadillac or something. I mean, I just feel very, very funny about that. That's just me. I mean, look, I don't know. Maybe there's, I don't know. I'd choose the Chevy over a Cadillac just because. I mean, really, you know, whatever gets you around. All right.
One more call at least. We're going to go to area code 812. 812, you're next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, I have a question. Have you guys ever talked about the Constitution-free zone around?
Yeah.
You're talking about the 200-mile inland constitutional-free zone, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, that's pretty scary. You know, I mean, that guy that one of your first callers was from Seattle, Washington. He's like in basically no man's land, I guess you could call it. That's kind of scary.
You know, there should be no speck of dirt, no bit of sand, no bit of foliage that should be a Constitution-free zone within the United States of America, and to have otherwise is totally antithetical to the Constitution of the United States. And you know, it's something that is you know, on the shoulders, on the backs, on the it's on the hands of both political parties and all elected officials and everybody in Washington.
Yes. Man.
Yeah.
And Hawaii is basically nothing. You know, I mean, all their islands are.
Hey, if they want to go protest, they're going to have to go to international waters, apparently. Anything else, caller?
No, thank you. I'm sorry for wasting your time yet again. But,
wow, you never. Hey, you didn't waste your time. You brought up a good point, and I'll tell you, constitutional free zones. Personally, I think it's important to talk about. It's important for people to understand. You know, speaking of that, caller, not to drag this out, but I got to tell you, I was talking with a guy at the store. In fact, he's a meat cutter. I want to say a butcher, but he was a meat cutter, and we were talking about just that topic. And he had no clue about constitutional free zones. And now this guy's been around for a long time, and he was active. By profession, he's a meat cutter, but he was also a member of our city council years ago, and followed politics, national, state, and local. But had no clue about this. So there are people that don't know about this stuff. So it's good to bring it up.
Yeah, I've actually told my boss and a couple of people I work with just last week, and I kind of blew their mind.
Yeah, it's something. Well, caller, thank you. You're the last caller of the evening. God bless you. Thank you for your call.
God bless you guys, and thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, buddy. And I'll tell you, this program went very quickly, very rapidly. Just to recap, folks, we are going after the records of the Hawaii Department of Health as well as other records. We ask that, and this is something I was talking to our intelligence insider about before, and he said, you've got a much different audience, and he said, God is as serious as we are. You know that? God is as serious as we are. And we can change things. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm just so impressed by the people that we have in our audience and the job ahead of us to get this revealed, where it's all revealed. Even though it seems like a yeoman's job, it shall be done, and we'll make sure it happens. I want to thank you in advance, everyone who has put up with me today, as well as listened as utterly resilient and gone through some very important, very critical information. With that, just want to say God bless and thank you for listening tonight.
Till tomorrow, we'll stand there. Stay safe and God bless. We'll see you then. Have a great night.